I'm wondering if men are wired a little bit differently, even though they're also wired for nurturing, because when my boys were young, my husband took 2 years off work because I was making a little bit more money, so it didn't make sense to use his salary for babysitting. But he would get up, make the boys breakfast, take them to school, pick them up, take them to the park, come home, do homework with them, put them into bed. He wouldn't cook, he wouldn't clean dishes, he wouldn't do any of that. When I had a week off from work, I would get up, make them breakfast, take them to school, come home, clean, wash, cook, pick them up, not take them to the park. While I was cooking, they'd be doing homework, and I would like, oh my God, what is going on? And it's like, are we wired a little bit different in that sense?
There's no brain wiring that says don't do the dishes. No, you know what that is? That's cultural expectations, and that's custom. There's absolutely no. What's interesting, a lot of times we think men and women are, wired differently, that our brains are wired differently, and there's been a lot of conventional, or writing about that. But what really the neuroscience, what they're finding when they look at all of the studies of brains is that there's more variation within gender than across gender. So there is no, it's really not true that women are wired for multitasking. Let me tell you right now, if you want to stop feeling quite as overwhelmed, stop multitasking. Nobody's good at it. Both men and women do it. The time studies show men tend to do it at work, which is changing from task to task. Women tend to do it at home, and that's changing not just from task to task, but role to role, which is incredibly emotionally and psychically taxing. So the brain cannot pay attention to two important things with the same amount of focus. And so the studies are finding that if you multitask, it makes you as stupid as being stoned. So don't do it. Do yourself a favor. Do one thing, and do one thing at a time, and do it well, and then move on. But the brain wiring now is off the table. So part of it is habit and custom and standards. My husband and I would always get in these huge fights. He'd say, well, you just think we live in Downton Abbey. We don't, but like always cleaning and polishing stuff. And I'm like, well, you are not the Lion King. You don't get to just laze around and I do all the work. And so part of what we had to do when we started having these talks about, well, what does it really take to run this family? And who should do it, and how should we divide it fairly? Part of what we had to do is come up with common standards. And part of that was, why, when you do the dishes, do you think doing the pots is not included? Do the pots just wash themselves? I mean, I don't get that. And so he's like, yeah, well, if it's spaghetti, I don't think it's really dirty. So I will tell you that when he's supposed to do the dishes and he doesn't wash the spaghetti pot, I don't either anymore. So I've had to come down because my time is also valuable. And so I think that's really important is coming up with those common standards and then holding each other accountable for them, and you not rescuing. Because that's the other thing I realized that I was doing. I work at home a lot. And so part of what we decided to do is every morning, I would unload the dishwasher and he would load it. Now this sounds so stupid, right? Oh, why are we even talking about that? Because this is a huge thing that couples fight about all the time. We can't figure out how to divide the labor fairly, and so then, the women who tend to be expected to do it, you feel like you have to nag, and you're always talking about it, and negotiating and fighting it, and the guys don't feel like they want to do it, and maybe they'll do it if they're asked. So the best thing to do is come up with a system so that you don't ever talk about it. And so that's what we decided to do. Is I would unload the dishwasher in the morning, he would load it, and then there were mornings when he didn't. And so instead of doing them for him like I had for 20 years, I took out my iPhone and I took a picture and I texted it to him with the tagline, "Really?